Hello and welcome to the Legends of Tabletop podcast. We're getting ready to jump into a session 0 for a brand new Core Worlds campaign. It's going to be the runner setting created by our own Jesse. Whether or not this even releases as an episode, time will tell. But we're going to treat it as such. We've got, I would say, a special guest star, but like if he's going to be on like all the time, then it's kind of not like a guest. Anyway, we're gonna have Dan from Fandible playing with us. That's super exciting for me personally because they're the best podcast ever. But I'm gonna stop gushing because whatever. I'm gonna kick it to Jesse and let him tell us whatever he's gonna tell us, and we'll figure some stuff out, I guess.
I bring
Jesse.
John, you just said it all. You left nothing more for me to say. So,
Grab your dice, start rolling.
So this is, our session 0. I don't know why I use the air quotes for that because it is literally a session 0. But yeah, this is, we're setting up the world and the situation and the kind of smaller microcosm that you'll be starting in, and then get into character development and all that kind of fun stuff. And depending on where that goes, I have a few different ideas for what we might do with the adventure. And we might get into some suit building and all that kind of stuff as well. So with one real quick thing, with runners, the character stats aren't necessarily as important. Like, they are important and they do play in tangentially, especially with gathering information and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the actual run, it has a lot more to do with the suit and the tech. So that's kind of where more of the focus is in terms of the actual building. So one of my ideas that I have, we won't be focusing on that as much, at least in the very beginning. But I'm open to anything, so we can figure out from there. So first, the world itself right now, it's a near future Earth. I set it kind of for Legends fans, like a little bit after like the Day Trippers style, like the Day Trippers era. So I think that's like
2100,
around 2200-ish. So we're playing probably about, at this point, about 150, probably about 200 or so years in the future, right? Is my math right? Yeah, there you go.
Maybe. I don't know. I think our campaign was 2120. Like, it was the current years we were playing, but like 2100 instead of 2000.
Oh, was it? All right. Yeah. So we're probably dealing about 150, 160 years in the future then.
So it's after the Republicans took the House and the Senate and the presidency and the war and nuclear.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, that's like 8 years from now. That's it's after that.
It's a hopeful game. Got it. There's an after that. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. We're assuming there is going to be an after. That's but yeah, so it takes place, this world takes place about 150, 160 years in the future. In the rule book, in the book, I'm not specific about it, mainly because I'm not specific about a lot of things. You'll notice in like money and distance is like blocks. And I kind of purposely leave it vague because I like people to be able to intuit whatever they want. So if you think a block is like 100 meters or 1,000 meters, ultimately it doesn't really matter. And so same thing here.
Measurement is.
What was that?
Meat tree? What is that? Meter? What?
Yeah.
You mean yards? Feet? What? I don't understand.
Technically, meters is the official unit of measurement in the United States. So
just the current events that this week the government in the UK is going to announce we're going to go back to imperial for metric because of that whole Brexit thing, kind of,
Wow.
So there's 3 countries in the world that use imperial: the US, Myanmar, and now it'll be the UK. So
really,
everyone else uses metric.
Jesus, can you kick Boris out faster? Like,
the more parties he has, the stronger he gets. It's his feet that he has, and I can't vote anyway, so it doesn't matter.
But yeah, so we basically, it's near future. There has been a nuclear war, and one of the things I also leave vague, and I'll actually be putting this in the rules eventually when I finally flesh everything out. The extent to which there is this kind of burnt area, like where there's this nuclear devastation, isn't solidified. So it's kind of like what was that zombie movie? 30 Days, or I can't
narrows it down.
Right. It was one of the, what was that, Kevin?
Was that the 28 days later?
28 days later. There you go. So you know how, like, your kind of assumption at the very beginning of the movie, spoilers for like a 15-year-old movie. But the assumption is that it's almost like a worldwide kind of thing, right? Like, but then you realize that, like, oh no, shit, the zombies are like just in England or whatever, wherever they were. But yeah, so it's the same thing here. Like, you don't necessarily know if the entire world is devastated like this, if it's just your continent, if it's just your coast. You have no idea, but we kind of play on the assumption, at least you have to live in this area. So that's all you know. So, it doesn't matter if it's just, Wyoming that's devastated, or the entire US, or the entire Northern Hemisphere. It doesn't matter because you're stuck here anyway. So, but yeah, so you live in a null zone, which is kind of a lower to no radiation area. It's like the pocket in between, where people have eked out existences, and over the last 20 or 30 years managed to actually build up something sustainable. Technology still exists. There is the future tech. There are some areas that we're able to harvest and plan ahead and still live in the current 2150s technological landscape. Whereas there are then some of your more agricultural areas that, think of it like Tatooine from Star Wars. Like, it's a shithole and it's hard living, but they still have like moisture evaporator, and all this kind of stuff. They still have technology to keep things going. So it's going to be the same thing. You'll still have solar panels and, some, your basic technology that's still better than what we have today. It's just more of a rudimentary mechanic, no play stuff. It's all efficient technology. Does that all make sense for everybody?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll get down to what runners are. So a runner is basically a delivery person. You're kind of like the Pony Express of the 22nd century.
Oh no, we're Amazon delivery people. Do we get a suicide box too, or what?
No, you do have to piss in your suit, but your suit actually it actually recycles the urine, and that's what you drink. So it works out. Yeah,
give me the box.
So yeah, but it's to be a runner is also kind of a fairly high-end job. Mainly because not a lot of people want to do it. It's super dangerous. Most runners die in like their mid 40s if they're lucky. You might have a good career of like 10-15 years before you finally die of radiation exposure. And it's also super dangerous because you're going out there a lot of times with no backup other than, if you run with a crew. But you're going up against, giant mutated animals and scavengers that might live in small safety pockets within the burnt. And you're traveling, for several hours, sometimes even days in this with, little no protection other than your suit. So, it's super dangerous, but because of that, and you're the ones that transport necessary goods most of the time. Because the null zones are so pocketed and cut off from each other, trade is super valuable because, you can't just order, we're kind of short on, say sand to make, glass and cement right now. We're a little short, but we'll just order some and it'll show up on a truck in a few days. And it's like that's not gonna happen. So runners being able to actually get goods from one place to another is how most of these null zones survive.
Ooh, I have a question.
Yes,
which hadn't occurred to me when we when you wrote it and we read through it and everything.
Yeah.
Why couldn't there be a truck? I mean, just no fuel. I mean,
there's so that's one thing too, is that everything base, it's kind of like almost
roads
solar punk
destroyed.
Yeah, there's no roads, cities are destroyed, so runners, are small and somewhat nimble, so you can get through the areas. So there's cities are and when you shoot off nuclear weapons, what do you look for? You look for high populated areas, density, all that kind of stuff. So, and you look for infrastructure. So airports, cities, industrial areas, all that, those are all completely, for the most part, completely destroyed.
Right.
So getting a truck from one place to another is pretty much impossible.
And that was the vibe I picked up when we played it. That was the way I kind of felt was, we went out on a run because every 10 feet you go, there's just the rubble everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, that kind of fit in, and that seemed, to fit in with the fact that you're actually having groups go out and do these things instead of, giant convoys, blasting through or anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was thinking, like, well, fuck, you could just slap one of those, reactors on a, rip out the engine block and throw on a reactor and,
right,
just go from here to there, right? Like, why the hell wouldn't you do that then, right? But yeah,
right, yeah,
everything's all fucked up, so makes sense.
And because I didn't want to make a futuristic long haul truckers video, RPG. Oh shit! Now I kind of wanna. We'll deal with that later.
And I think the other thing, and Jesse, tell me if this is wrong, but I think when we played, it was you have to go somewhere to find something, right? No, obviously not every run's going to.
Well, that was so. So Kevin's talking about the first game that we did. You guys were brand new runners, and so that was like your
okay, that's right,
your entrance
so
exam.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
but yeah, if you were in a big reactor truck, and they said go find something, it's going to be kind of hard if you're just blasting through.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Plus, you wouldn't have the protection then either, right? Because you wouldn't be in a suit; you just be a dude in a truck.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, one of the big dangers that you have going into the burnt too is there are people both from other null zones, but more importantly, there's these small area called scrubs within the burnt. They're usually super small places where maybe a few dozen, maybe 20 people live, that they use technology to actually, they almost live in like a small tent or like a dome. And they literally, the reason they're called scrubs is because they use technology to actually like scrub the air to remove the radiation and other particles out of it. But they need technology to keep those going. So there are scavengers that will run the burnt, and they're looking for scrap and things like that. But you'll usually find the best and newest, or at least the most well upkept technology on a runner. So that's, if you had giant convoy trucks that were able to go through from, that's a super easy target. So runners at least can attempt to avoid danger or run away from it.
Run away! Really? Just me? All right. Okay. Go ahead. Continue.
So what we'll be doing tonight is kind of figuring out where you guys live. John came up with a really good idea of generating a null zone, which is in the book. So kind of coming up with the area that you live in, where you're starting off, and all that kind of stuff. And that will give us an idea that can kind of lead into why you're a runner and who you're running for. If anybody, you can, that's one thing too, is that runners can work for giant corporations. You could effectively be like the equivalent of an Amazon delivery person working for a giant megacorp. You could be a runner that is financed by your zone because you need, they need somebody to get goods in and out. Or you could be self-financed and just, an independent runner. But one of the things is that runner suits are super expensive. And one of the things is there is money still, obviously. Capitalism, even after the apocalypse, apparently doesn't end. So there's still, what was that?
Even more so.
Right. So there is, but money money's a little bit more fluid. So there might be scripts, bills or whatever that are just traded within that null zone. They could work on a cred system, basically just credit cards and digital currency for those more upkept with technology. You could also find yourself in a null zone that's very agrarian and only uses the barter system. You don't really know. But aside from that, runners work on reputation, basically. Because the stuff that you are buying, the parts that you buy are so vastly over the price of anything that anybody else would buy. I think the general understanding is that one rep is about 10,000 of, insert dollar here. So even your most basic reactor that you're going to buy is, a third of somebody's yearly income. And that's something that a runner is like, oh yeah, I guess I just made 3 rep from my last run, from all the scavenge and everything that all the scrap that I got and all this. So yeah, I guess I'll spend, $20,000 on some new thrusters. So that's why we kind of break that down a little bit more to make it you're dealing on a far greater scale than anybody else around you for the most part. So yeah, I guess the first thing we should get into then is making up your null zone, because that'll give us a good idea, a good starting place.
All right.
Does anybody else have questions before we jump into it?
No, nothing that won't come out when we start making the characters. So I think it was more just some in between us questions, but we'll build that out when we build the characters.
Sounds good.
When you say self-finance, you mean like mom and dad gave you the money, like Elon Musk, or like actually?
That's one thing that that we can figure out as we go too. You know, you could be a wealthy trillionaire, got money from your parents. You could have hit the jackpot. You could be actually an inventor and engineer, unlike Elon Musk, and actually have created something useful and gotten money from that. And so that's one thing that you can work out in depending on what you want to do in backstory and all that kind of stuff, and with the light shapers and everything. And who knows, you could have also incurred just a shit ton of debt in order to finance your running. So there could be a corporation out there that or there could even be a bank that it was like, hey, you're showing some promise. We'll lend you $30,000 in order to get your running career up and going. But now you owe us. So all possibilities. So I think for the null zone generation, if anybody does want to follow along, it's on page 9 of the PDF. But I think what we'll do is actually just go around and have everybody either you can either choose whatever you think looks cool, or if you want, you can roll. Everything is done on a D6 for it. So, okay, good. I wanted to make sure that I didn't screw things up. Except I did. I forgot to change words. This is why we proofread. So we'll basically just start and go around the horn, and we'll roll up stuff until we have a null zone. And we'll tweak afterwards if we think that something doesn't make sense, or that we'd like this option better. We can always screw with it afterwards. Nothing is permanent. So John, why don't you go ahead and give us our first D6? This is going to be for the foundation of the null zone. So this is basically the area, the geography of what the null zone was built up on.
Cool. I am using Kurt. What's Tracy's thing? Midwest resin dice.
Midwest resin geek.
Midwest resin geek. So I'm using my awesome dice that Kurt's wife Tracy made. You should check it out. They're awesome. I'll put a link in the show notes.
You should.
I got a 6, sir. See, they even roll high. They're awesome.
Look at that. They're all weighted so that you will always roll the maximum number.
I will say, most of the time when I roll for when we do the Core Noir game or whatever, I usually roll really high. So it's not good for John usually, but it's still.
It's all those extra BBs you put in.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so 6, yes, that's icy.
That's icy, yes.
Ooh,
interesting.
So this is the null zone that we're gonna be
starting in, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So icy makes me think of more like up north. That's going to be your like northern Canada or Alaska or the Scandinavian area, maybe even northern Russia. So that might be interesting. All right. How about Dan? Why don't you give us our next D6? This is going to be what it currently is. So this is basically the size of the null zone as it is right now.
Gotcha. I'm going to roll using my $3 dice app on my phone. Alas, let's see. That's a 6 again. Apparently. Oh dear. That appears to be a metropolis, which gives us a +1 technology. So we are. It's cool.
Look at that.
But we're doing well up here.
Right. Yep. So clearly, this null zone had prepared ahead of time.
Well, maybe makes sense, right? Like if it's Alaska or one of Scandinavian countries, that it's a little bit more set apart, right? So maybe it wasn't as heavily bombarded, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. It also could have been like.
I was going to say already used to living under relatively harsh conditions. So.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nice. All right. Kurt, why don't you give us our next D6? This is what style of leadership the null zone has.
Okay.
So this is actually, it's basically the governmental system that is in place.
Okay. And unfortunately, I don't have my dice with me because I'm going to be moving a couple of times tonight. So I'm going to use an app myself.
Yeah.
And boy, this must be a theme because I rolled a 6 also.
We just used up all those good rolls in the session 0. Got it.
Right.
Exactly. We're all going to die.
Oh
boy.
So that is a drafted council. So in essence, it is a leadership by committee. So you have a group of people that that lead that lead this metropolis, this giant city in the north. But it's not a voting. So everybody is included. It could be every year, every 2 years, whatever, time period there is. But each cycle, it's basically a lottery system. And when your name is drawn, you become part of the council for that period of time. So you can get an interesting mix of, people who have no fucking clue what's going on, people who are super interested and prepared for the job. So
basically like our current system, just, I mean, really. I know this is very heavy-handed right away, but believe me, it will get very RP and good later. So I apologize if anybody's like, what the hell?
Come for the RP and stay for the social commentary.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, this is going to get interesting. Kevin, why don't you go ahead and roll for the law,
and then add +1 to your roll.
Yes,
we get +1 from the leadership.
Correct.
Oh, is that what that was? The 1 + 1. Okay, I gotcha. The 2 + 1, 3.
3.
It was a beer frame.
Interesting.
I broke the Satan. I broke the Satan roll 666.
You did?
Yeah, this guy was a beer frame.
Interesting. So customary law is, I'm actually gonna have to I believe it's based off of basically ancient or established customs within the society. What was that, John?
I say we've always done it this way. This is we just keep doing it
exactly.
This way, that's what we know.
These are the laws because these have always been the laws.
Except when you just want to strike down established case law, and that's go ahead.
So I have a thought on how this, the way it's playing out, but let's do all the rolls first, and then I'll throw that out and see if anyone else.
Yeah, because the technology roll might just like throw a real curveball at us.
That may definitely feed into what I was thinking. So let's wait till all the rolls are done in that.
Right. All right. So, John, why don't you go ahead and give us our technology law roll, and you're going to get a +1 on this from it being a metropolis.
Yeah. It's going to be a 5. So current.
5. Current. All right. Yeah. So that basically means that we're dealing in, modern time technology, which is still, we're still dealing in 2150s technology. So that means that, there's AR and drones and, everything's running off of, solar panels and wind farms and all this kind of stuff. And, so it's very comfortable, basically. You're still stuck within, you can't go traveling outside of the metropolis. But, it's still a very superfluously comfortable existence. So,
yes, as post-apocalypses go, not the worst.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're stuck here, but it's pretty nice. So, all right, Dan, why don't you go ahead and finish us up with the border roll? And from our technology level, you'll be getting a +1 on this as well.
Gotcha. All right, let's see. Roll. That is a 2 + 1, 3. So weak borders.
A weak border. Interesting. So they it could be a few different things depending. They could feel just comfortable in their surrounding. It could be that the bulk of the population and the technology is dedicated to the central area of the metropolis, and that it kind of spreads out and gets a little less so on the fringes. It really, we can as we kind of figure out exactly what your city is, we can determine that. So, so
like maybe with I was gonna say kind of maybe with a weak border, maybe something like we're up north enough that there's like a significant physical barrier, right? Like there's some mountains or something in between us.
True.
So that's why, we never invested much in like a strong like border defense, not a lot of patrols or whatever, because we're kind of counting on the terrain for
that makes sense. Yeah.
Interesting move, Con. Let's see how that works out for them, right? Because they also seem like a very rich target.
Right. It's the classic castle scenario. Why build a wall when this mountain is doing the job for us? So
right.
All right, Kevin, you said that you had a thought.
Well, I think that the thing that triggered it in my mind is when we said, when you were listing when John was listing the different land masses that could be an icy metropolis. So we're saying it's icy, so that's north. It's kind of a city. It's kind of got a drafted council, so it's picked by like a lottery, and then like it's customary. So you go with whatever. It almost sounds like a company town, right? And when you were saying like northern Russia, so all the old industrial military sites, all those cities that were like almost blank cities outside of the Soviet Union, were in the north. They were big, sprawling, all the big mining cities and things like that. So the drafted council could be, all the employees or whatever that live there. So it didn't have to be Russia, but that's what stuck in my mind was you're in the north, it's cold, it's isolated, it's a big ass city, and everybody gets a chance to, take a shot at it. So, if it's in Canada or the northern US, maybe the union runs it, right? the drafted council, everybody gets a shot. So I don't know. Yeah. And like Dan said, depending on the current, so it's current technology, so that helps. If it was, primitive, then it kind of throws it out the window. But maybe it's an old industrial city, almost like a company town that maybe is the big mining area, or there was a big steel plant or something like that.
Yeah.
That kind of has that feel of, the kind of the different hits that we did on those rolls.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It could even, it could have the feel of like it's, they kept up on all the current technology because it was industrial, because it was important.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's kind of almost like a black site. Like the country, let's say it is like Russia, they kind of kept it off the books. They didn't, nobody necessarily knew about it. It's way up there. So, it didn't really necessarily register, or maybe it was, as like a sufficient enough target that
exactly. So it wasn't, maybe it wasn't a military site. So like if it it wasn't an armaments kind of thing. Maybe it was just, like Joe was saying, maybe it was a big Amazon distribution center. Maybe it's just, it had that critical mass of, it was almost like a city unto itself. It was that big.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
actually,
mining or something.
Yeah.
Like
actually, I had a thought. So, one of the things that I haven't put in this yet, but that will eventually be part of it, is what the null zone has a surplus of and what they are lacking in. And so one of the thoughts, so when you were talking about it, Kevin, what if the reason this wasn't necessarily a high value target is because it's kind of still a holdover from the old technology. So like maybe it is a mining facility, but it's mining like coal or something, it's something that most people thought wasn't useful.
Well, yeah.
So that's why it was.
Yeah. If it's in the future, then it's not doing,
exactly. Yeah.
rare earth minerals or anything. It's old.
Right. Yeah.
Old.
Yeah. I mean, or at least at this point, the minerals that are more important are like cobalt and lithium and things like, things to make batteries and technology. Whereas your more old school mining facilities aren't necessarily as important because that technology isn't used anymore. Yeah. But for whatever reason, yes.
No, I didn't want to cut you off mid-sentence.
Oh, no, go.
My hand up. So if it was something like coal, right? So it was kind of phased out. So like maybe there were still, a decent enough deposits there, but with the switch to geothermal and solar and that kind of stuff, because the technology was better, right? 21, whatever.
Right.
But now that, maybe we're in a nuclear winter still, and solar is not as efficient, or, geothermal is not as efficient because the planet is cooled. Now people are using coal again, at least in our area. Right. So like we have a surplus that we can then trade so people can, heat their place if we're in an icy, cool area because of a, climatological shift because of the war. Right. Yeah. So like it wouldn't even have to be Alaska necessarily. We could be in, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, but because of nuclear winter, the climate is shifted. So even, lower, 48 states,
colder, your hotters or your hot's hotter. Yeah.
We can be in Kurt's backyard.
Yeah, true, right?
It's already cold for 9 months.
No one's going to care about coal pollution, right? Because we just make the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that would explain maybe why we're doing well, because we've been able to keep industry running at a much more efficient pace than like maybe other communities have had to be forced to rely on solar, and so they can only run their industry during certain times. They don't have enough batteries to keep going at night, but those coal engines, those can run all day, all night. So long as you keep feeding them.
Yeah.
And if it's if it's like Kevin was saying, like a company town, it could be that the money system is script then, right? So like it would be like like an old mining town or an old, train town kind of thing where they just pay in script. So you're locked into, in our current iteration, like if you worked on the train and you were in this town, it's a company town, like they give you script and you can only use it to buy the products that the company provides. Right. So like maybe it's sort of a holdover.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is it is current technology.
Yeah.
So I think, and remember, current isn't like our time, but future time. So I think I like that idea of having like a company fund. But what do you think of making it more of like a credit card type thing? I'm thinking kind of, has everyone seen Obi-Wan yet?
Mm-hmm. I did.
I don't want to.
I did.
Yeah. I'm thinking, when every time he punches out, they have that little cred stick that they stick into the gonk droid, and that's how they get paid. And it could be like similar, like you have like your cred stick that all of your money goes on, but it's like run by the company, right? It's you're getting like coal bucks, like, or like coal creds.
And that feeds into what John was saying, right? So we're not going with the old, West Virginia coal miners where you can only shop in the, it was script. It wasn't actually like dollars, but, credit card, a swiping something serves the same purpose, right? You can't purchase unless you have that. You can only purchase at certain places. And I guess also, we're saying it's current technology, obviously, and I think we were working around it. Coal was an old technology, but it's all gone to hell anyways. So even maybe there was lots of people there that tinkered to figure it out. We've got this kind of newer technology, but you burn coal and it produces something that spins something that powers something. Yeah. So there's lots of kind of retrofitting or that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Working.
Yeah. I mean, you could this metropolis that you live in could be kind of more of a hybrid situation. You still have that future tech, but in the end, the backbone is this old fuel source that basically runs everything from below. So
your hovercraft's rolling coal, but you got to do it one way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it had your you might have an electric engine. It's it's the situation that a lot of people throw out right now. It's like, well, why buy an electric vehicle when that electricity is just coming from a coal plant anyway? It's like, well, that's the situation you're in right now. Like all the technology is electric. Your suits run on batteries and all that kind of stuff, but you're using coal plants to charge all that stuff. So supplanted with, there's probably still solar panels and wind turbines and everything, but like Dan said, they're only useful for a certain period of time. And the reason you guys have been, this metropolis has been able to run so and kind of build up steam is by being able to support it with this other fuel source that probably a lot of other places haven't been able to, and that's why they failed, and you scrapped them and took their tech into you and eventually grew your city out. All right, so I think we have what you have surplus of. What is your null zone in need of?
Probably food, from the sounds of it. I mean, I doubt we have a lot of fertile fields growing lots of crops.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah. I mean, with modern tech, we probably have some like hydroponics and things like that where we can grow inside where we're heating our buildings with coal. but no fields, right? Like for a metropolis, we probably are a net importer of food. Makes sense.
Right. And also, between the tundrous area that you live in, and also the fact that, you're you're in a metropolis, so it's packed with people. It's a former industrialized area, and and it runs off of fossil fuels. It's probably not the best growing circumstances. Like John said, you probably have like a handful of those hydroponic freight containers that you're able to grow some super basic stuff from, but it's not going to give you your wheat, your rice, all your grains. It's probably really, and because you don't have that, you probably don't have a lot of animals that you can, at least not in a sufficient enough quantity that you can actually feed the population. So yeah, there's probably a lot of necessity for just basic foods.
I think to Dan's point, maybe it is, we're surviving because it's maybe a step above subsistence. It's a big place, everybody's being fed, but it's really basic. It's there's nothing flashy about what we have. Everybody's surviving and getting by, but hardtack all the time isn't. You want a bit of vegetables or fruits every once in a while.
Right, exactly.
Maybe maybe that is that anything we could make anything we could get above what we're making ourselves, which is just the minimum to keep everybody going.
Yeah,
I have a follow up to the coal.
Yeah,
gold is not uncommon in coal deposits. Most coal deposits contain above average crustal abundance. In fact, many gold mines recover gold using heap leach technology, and also measurements of coal and coal ash have shown that it contains localized high contents of noble metals, rare earths, gallium, scandium, and selenium, and other elements. So there could be byproducts along with coal. I mean,
so that answers the question I was about to bring up, which is, all right, we need to bring in food. We have coal, right, that we use to power our city. But what do we have to offer the people that we're getting the food from, right? Because you can sell them coal, but they probably don't have the facilities for like coal burning at the level where it would power a city. So what do we have to offer? But I think John just answered the question.
Yeah.
Right, because we have modern, which is advanced technology. So they need things like selenium and things like that to make circuits to keep runner suits moving and like that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So that could be. So going back to what you have a surplus of too. That's a good point. Like your surplus not necessarily be the coal. That's what your zone runs off of. But your surplus could be the metals and minerals that you don't necessarily have a need for, because you primarily run off of, or at least halfway run off of the coal energy. So you have this surplus of all these other minerals, but a lot of these other null zones, they need it to keep their technology running. So
a lot of that, the stuff now. So a lot of those batteries that can store maybe geothermal or solar need all those those rare earth minerals or things like that. So maybe they're replacing or trying to bodge their stuff. They're going to need those, those weird elements that no one ever knows about, to keep them going. So that, I think that fits in pretty good.
Yeah.
I think another thing that would actually make I know this probably doesn't really help us at all, but it'd be kind of a good foreground thing. Like with like the draft lottery council people or whatever, it's also a plus that like, if you're on the council, like you're like, oh, for however long I'm gonna be on here, maybe I'm gonna get first dibs at like the good food. So it'd be like one of those things where like people are kind of excited about it, and maybe that creates tension between council members and just plain folk and stuff like that too.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's like politics now. Like there could be council members that use that. They're like, all right, I'm going to use this position to get myself the good stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
So looking at coal resource document, Montana and Wyoming both have coal along with some other metal, non-metal, ferrous stuff. Utah as well has coal. So just as far as like placement, if that matters, so you do have your lower 48, but like upper middle country areas.
We can also assume that 100 and something years in the future and post-nuclear war, the weather patterns have shifted substantially. Areas that are maybe not that cold today might be very cold in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
But it sounds to me basically, we're building here in the politics and the economy of it, that we're probably going to be, I guess, working for the city. Sounds like, because this is not the type of place, right, where you're going to have like small runs. You need to feed a metropolis, and what you're trading for that is the kind of like rare minerals, metals, and everything that only probably another fairly advanced outpost would be interested in. Like your average group just surviving doesn't care that you can provide them with 50 pounds of vanadium. They can't do anything with vanadium. But like a more advanced city is like, yeah, we can use that to manufacture more electronics. So it sounds like any runs that we would be doing, unless we just like completely scrap, like it's like, all right, this is a great setting and we're going to live as far away from it as possible. So otherwise
we're going to live on those outskirts and then screw the metropolis. Yep.
Exactly. So it sounds like we'd probably be working for the metropolis directly for rather large or shipments, I guess, with and dealing with other cities or other major organizations, not just with like individual traders.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that will kind of feed into when we get to the character. So one of the things I was thinking is, it's always the question in any role-playing game. How do you guys get together? How do you know each other? So maybe that, what Dan was saying, is maybe that's a built-in way to get us together.
Co-workers, right?
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a company town. We all work for the company. Right. Instead of being run by like a CEO, it's run by the union, basically.
And maybe we're a new crew we're a new crew that's put together or something like that, or we've worked together. Because I think what you were saying, Jesse, is you want us to start kind of pretty low. So maybe this is our first runs together, or as Dan said, it's a big metropolis. We're not going to be the only game in town. Maybe there's an uptick in something, or maybe something bad happened to a bunch of the other runner crews. They need some more. We're being drafted in, not drafted in, but we're being a new crew's coming to the fore, kind of thing.
Right. Well, it's either be a butcher, work in the coal mines, smelt, or take your chances and go run and make a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, right. And Dan, I'm totally stealing your idea. I love that you mentioned that you mentioned a union. So the council is, when you get drafted to the council, you get drafted to the union. So that is like the leadership of all the workers.
Well, all of the iconography is just like clenched fists. Red is the predominant color.
Lots of gears and stuff like that. Yeah.
Are you sure you don't want it? We can do a hardcore callback to the Soviet Union, and you can be in northern Russia with the hammer and sickle. Yeah, I like it. So speaking of going very smoothly then into who your characters are. So one of the ideas that I actually did have was that you would be a group of runners that are new to a corporation, starting off that way. And I think this fits in very perfectly to that. Now, one thing is that we can play with the situation. So the main reason that I had for starting off that way is because I know that creating the suits and everything can be slightly daunting. I know there's a lot. There's a John's. Really, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of columns. And so one of the ways that I was going to kind of smooth that over is I use the analogy with John when I first brought this up a while back of kind of the Clone Wars, right? So when you won't join the clone army, if you watch the Clone Wars series, everybody starts off wearing the same exact armor, right? You're given your uniform and that's it. But what I found really interesting and cool is that as things go on and as the clones start finding their individuality, they start customizing their armor, add a pauldron, different paint jobs. I want mine to be a little heavier because I find myself on the front lines so I need a little more armor, that kind of stuff. So what I was picturing is everybody starting off with the same suit, but kind of as we progress, every time you get back and have a little extra rep, you add something here and there, and that's how we'd start to kind of differentiate y'all out.
I like that idea. I think that fits in. If we're going to go with what we're saying about this null zone, that kind of fits in, right? Not everybody's the same or everybody's standard, but it is okay. You're new. This is for you. It'll be provided. Then anything you build on top of that is up to you. So I think that does, and then that also lets us, because when we played before, I think we all had in mind kind of what we wanted our character to be. From the suit standpoint, I think playing it this way is we grow, the suit can grow around us other than us just rolling up a suit and kind of fit into that. So I think that is a good idea. And then that gives us also, where the story's taking us, where our character's taking us, and then helping us build the suit. Because as you say, it's not daunting, but it's too many options, because then you're having fun. Well, what if I put this here and I have that there, and that kind of thing. But I think growing into it and just letting it come naturally like that, I think that works out really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to counter my own opinion, only to give everybody options, right? To mainly because Kevin, you agreed with it too quickly. I know that John actually enjoyed the suit building aspect and the tweaking and everything. I know that you're a min-maxer at heart, so you like that kind of stuff.
There's so many options.
Plus, as I said in the beginning, the character building isn't necessarily in the stats and skills, but in the suit. So
can we split it up? Can we do it? Do we all have to do one or the other, is what I'm saying, is because I think I can have a character idea where it is, well, I'm here, I got a suit, I'm going to go out and do it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I can build on that. And to me, that sounds cool. I'm happy to do that. If John wants to be, when we rolled up our ship and road trader, I can't remember how many sessions that took. If John wants to do that, can he do that then? Or if Dan wants to do that? Or are you saying, can we each pick it individually, or do we have to?
I think it would be more interesting story-wise if we all went one or the other.
Okay.
I'm happy to do it either way. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Building a suit is fun, but if nobody wants to be bothered and Jesse's like, here's a 10-point suit, you guys all have the same thing, go ahead and customize like the outside, describe what your suit looks like, all that kind of stuff. I'm totally fine with that. It's fun to build a suit.
It could also be a point of progressive character generation, almost, of you find out who your character is and how they run as you go. So you're like, as you develop your individual's play style, you're like, well, I like to be a little bit, it turns out I like to be a little bit faster. So as I go, I'll add more things that add to speed, or, shit, I end up taking a ton of radiation damage when I go out every time. And so I think I need a little more shielding, or I end up being the front line every time we run into a pack of sabers. So now I need more armor. So it could be one of those, like, you start off as kind of a blank slate and you find your way as you go. In a little bit more of a natural progression, rather than being like, I'm going to decide that I'm the tank from the very beginning.
Well, so let me ask you this then. So if we're provided with suits, how does the company feel about us then modding something that's worth a lot of money that they're just giving us?
Well, remember too, I mean, while the technology is prevalent, runner technology is still a pretty rare thing. So in this situation, in your zone, most runner tech is probably also part of the company. So they wouldn't provide it if they weren't okay with you using it.
Also, this is not your suit. These are our suits, right? Like,
yeah.
Like the company might be okay with with customization and everything. You're expected to, I guess, use the same suit for as long as you're running, because we don't have enough to just be swapping them out. But also, it's not your suit. So whatever customizations happen, when the day comes, so like, well, whoever gets your suit next gets them. And there might be, it might be more of a social taboo, like, don't put anything on your suit that, like, the next guy is going to make it impossible for him to use the suit.
Right. That's a really
good point. You can still do it, but
Well, I mean, the suit is ours, or it's ours, the royal hours, right?
Right.
But it's customized because obviously they want us to go out and be successful. So whatever makes us successful, customizing it. But once you bite it, the suit's going to someone else, and all this customization.
Right. Yep.
So if you're improving it, right, it's not just you're doing it for yourself. It will redound onto someone else who gets the suit after you, after you're no longer there or no longer using it, kind of thing.
Which really reinforces the capitalist theme of, right, like, you're going to spend all this money to make this thing better, but it's really not yours, and you're going to lose it.
Yeah, and it's going to go to someone else.
It's like paying your mortgage.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. So in that instance, then, so if we are going with the blank slate option of a suit, would you prefer that I build a suit and send it to you guys, or do we want to take a few moments and, as the theme of your city goes, do you want to build a suit by committee, and do we want to kind of develop our starter suit together?
Fuck, how much time do we have?
Well, so I will say it will be a zero wealth suit. It will be a zero
you're
rep
killing
suit.
me, Smalls.
Yes.
Right.
So that way I know John doesn't like it. So the thing, you can still create, there are a handful. All right. How about this, John?
No, do what you're gonna do.
Let me see. So how much were the suits that you built for the last game?
They were 5
you remember?
point suits.
What?
They were 5 point suits. I can email everybody
I got the spreadsheet you had, right?
Yeah, we have an Excel sheet.
That is not. I changed a bunch of the numbers on that.
Oh, fucking hell!
That's not used. Mainly, I changed it for two reasons. Well, the first one actually doesn't matter too much, because I changed the cost of the chassis to correlate more with the current core complete math.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter too much though, because you're the cheap outside of the 0 rep medium sized chassis. The next one is the heavy, and that's 10 reps, so you can't even afford that yet anyway.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I did in regards to presence. So presence is one of the factors in a suit. It's how present you are, how easily identified you are. You're running around in a mechanical suit, even though it is a personal suit. It's not huge, but they're still loud and kind of pretty easy to see a lot of the times. But that being said, with the way that we figured out after, back and forth on Discord and with the game that we ran, I realized that the presence numbers that I had in the previous system were way too high, so it would be possible for you to have like really easily like a 7 or 8 in presence, which means that you would always, it was impossible to overcome. Like you would always be seen no matter what. And that just wasn't fun. So I lowered some of the presence values while also giving a few more options for people to be able to lower their presence. So yeah, that's why your spreadsheet isn't useful anymore, John.
Well, but I mean, the categories are the same though, right? You're going to have cost, you're going to have size,
They are, yeah.
You're going to have power generation.
Yep.
So it's just some of
still-
those other numbers are going to be different. The cost and everything.
Exactly,
the
yeah.
presence.
Well, so
I
you had
mean-
to fill them all in anyway. Like there was no,
Yeah.
like the spreadsheet auto calculates, but you have to fill in all the numbers. It didn't
Oh,
have-
you're talking about your fillable characters, your fillable sheet.
yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So we had the Excel spreadsheet that had a bunch of stuff on it, but then I think John did have a fillable suit PDF, right? Is that the one you're talking about, John? Or is that something different?
Well, so I'm talking about the spreadsheet. We do have a fillable sheet. I don't know if that's still accurate.
That's still viable, yeah, because that's
Okay.
just blank
Okay.
that's just blank entries that
Okay.
you put numbers into. So
I'm going to send both things over to everybody now. Worksheet. The Excel sheet, you could just delete all the numbers in it. I just too lazy to delete them. If we're actually going to build them, it's useful. If not, then it kind of, because we were just doing it all on scratch paper, and I think Todd was like, "Hey, I made this sheet. You could just fill all the shit in." And I was like, "Oh, that's
Right,
so
yep.
much easier."
yep.
So I'm changing my avatar because originally I thought I would go with the Snake Plissken kind of feel. But if we're doing cold weather, I might as well go with McCready, right? So I'll go with
Oh,
McCready.
there you go. Yep. Makes sense.
Since I'm on
Nice.
Kurt Russell.
There you go. All right, so Kevin's Kurt Russell. Regardless. But you can't be named Kurt because that'll be way too confusing.
No, I'll come up with a different name. And it's not going to be McCready either because I don't want to get us
Right.
copyrighted. Or
Fuck them, man. We'll just do it.
Just do the SNL version and do like McGrudy.
I wonder, and this is a larger question that maybe isn't appropriate for what we're doing right now, but just as a thought experiment
questions
for
are
the
valid.
system. Because the 0 point and even a 5-point suit didn't have really that much shielding.
Mhm.
If the chassis itself should have some built-in shielding in and of itself, and or armor, right? Because you are in a metal suit, right? So I'm wondering if, even just a point of armor and a point of shielding would sort of mitigate the negative of like you're running around in spandex, right? But it's made out of metal, so you feel better, right? And again, I don't know that is relevant for like right in this moment, but just as like
That does make sense.
just like for the system overall.
Right.
If that might make more sense.
And that protection would just be kind of damage protection, right? That's not environmental protection.
So
There's
shielding would be
yeah.
environmental.
The shielding is
would be
environmental.
physical.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's right. Okay.
Because I'm building a suit as we speak.
Of course you are.
So the chassis has nothing. Reactors, actuators, going to get you speed. It's going to get you power generation. Your air filters are fiberglass, and they're +1.
Mm-hmm.
You have no shielding that you can purchase for 0.
True.
So if the suit doesn't have anything, if you enter any zone that has any amount of radiation, you are getting hosed. Right. And maybe that's, maybe that's not a bug. Maybe that's a feature. But, if you, as a new player to core, if you play it and then you do your first run and you're like, fuck, I took 25 radiation damage. I've got a tentacle for a dick now. Like, I don't want to play this anymore. Or maybe you want to play it more. I don't know.
Right.
Play style, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So here's an idea, maybe, because using the setting as we did, right? We've kind of established that these suits, get recycled, right? Get reused. So maybe we start with, I don't know, wealth 1 or what. So I don't know the system at all yet, of course, but maybe we start with like one step above like entry level, because we're getting these suits from, whoever had them before, whoever retired or died or whatever. So maybe we do get like either a slight bump up or like the option to do like one customization, something like that. So they are slightly different because these are used suits, are not just fresh off the line.
To stay in with the system, I think, because we're not rookies coming in. We didn't crawl out of a different null zone saying I need a job, right? So instead of maybe changing the system, not changing the system, but to what Dan was saying is maybe bake that first level up, because we're not all freelancers. We're working for something, and that something has given us a step above kind of. So maybe it's not a 0. We'll play it maybe as like a 0 level suit, but it really isn't, because they're giving us something that has a bit, because it's an organization. We're not coming in. I think when we played last time, we made our own suits, right?
You're right. Yeah.
We built our own suits from scratch. And maybe this is, okay, it's a bit better because we're getting it from, from an employer,
Yeah.
Yeah, this would still be like our first real run, quote unquote. But we probably had like some training. It's the corporate training, if you will. Right? Exactly.
Right,
and this is like our first, like, okay, your first real run, your first official mission, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I had when Dan, when you were talking about it being, our suits and everything like that, and then John and everyone was talking about recycling the suits, basically. Like, this guy dies, great, all right, pass his suit off to the next schmuck that's taking his place. That plays into that then, where maybe 10 12 years ago, like, they created a single, like, it was really easy to just like mass manufacture like a few dozen suits, so they all started off the same. But over the years, as more runners got their hands on them, and they customized them and built them up. So I kind of actually like the idea where these are older suits that have been repurposed and reused over and over again. So they initially started out the same, but now they're different because you could have a suit that 3 or 4 or 8 other people have used before you, and they customized it how they felt it needed to be. So that kind of gives us a reason to have each of you have your own different suit.
So we're going with Jesse's thought of we're all coming in and it's a standard, but we're also fudging it a bit so then John we can tweak. So we can build a
exactly. Best of both worlds. It's peanut butter and chocolate.
So again, so this is like a mechanical issue, sort of. So as I'm looking at version 0.7, on page 15 16 of the PDF, but actually page 8, like physical page 18.
Yes. 18?
18 in like the browser number.
Are you talking
like
about the weapons?
Well, so here's the problem. So under attachments, additional bits and pieces, blah blah blah. Your first section there is missing the header of sensors, and then the next group from
everything
to biothermal.
Everything. Okay. It's technically not missing it.
Well,
it is missing it completely.
It is missing it completely.
It is. So the problem with that is I didn't add all of the line breaking for all that because I have to. So for the layout for that, I have to do all that manually. I literally, so if you go up to, let's see, where is a good view of it? Well, I did none of it. I did none. Well,
here's the only reason why I bring it up, right? Because Dan's only got version 7, so none of that will make sense, right? So like on page 13 of the PDF, page 16 in the browser thing, whatever. The first 4 sections there, so short, medium, long HUD is actually for sensors. And then the next batch, EWAC, thermal.
Actually, no, it's for communications.
It says sensor.
Does it say sensor? Okay, yeah.
And then the next group is sensor augment. And then underneath
that's right.
that, thruster. So maneuver, boost, jump, pack, hover. So if we're going to build suits, that'll be important for Dan. I can send you version 0.6 that has the headers if you want to just bring both pages up so you have the names, because the values might not be the same if Jesse changed them, but I can send you, so you can have open up side by side.
What I'll do is tonight I'll just throw in some real quick formatting for that.
Okay. Shit, you could even just do it in Paint, right? Something just like fucking scroll it in.
So in order to do it, I'm using a layout program for it, and so it's all graphic. So what I have to do, it doesn't do tables well, because tables is a Word doc thing. So when I used to do layout in Office, it was really easy because I could just like do create table, and then I want every other line to be gray and I want the headers to be black. I have to do all that by hand now in the layout program. So it looks a lot better, but it takes a lot more time. I literally have to create a box that fits that line perfectly. And then at that point I can copy it and I can do it that way. But I was hesitant to do that because I know that all of my pages, as I keep adding all the new information for like character building and stats and everything, all that's going to get pushed down. So I was like, I don't want to bother. But for you guys, I'll bother.
Right, just so it'll make sense then.
Exactly, yeah. So I'll do that tonight, and then shoot that off just so we'll have a better reference document for it.
Can you pull it and then just do those like 2 pages or 3 pages of gear as a separate document?
I could, yeah.
Because you don't really need the rest of the book just for that as a reference for us to build, if that's what we're going to do.
Very true. Yeah, I could do that as well.
It might make it easier for you.
Yeah. I like that. Good idea. So now, do we want to do a suit build right now? Or is that something that you guys want to do on your free time?
I mean, I may spend like an hour and a half building a suit.
It does not take that long.
Well, so
you're gonna scare off Dan.
No, because
it takes 3 minutes to roll up a character, about 4 hours to make a suit.
No, well, so it's the fiddliness, right? So it's like, oh, do I want to? Fuck, I could spend 1 wealth on this to get better shielding, but fuck, if I don't spend that, I could spend 2 wealth on this, and then I'll be like 10 times faster. Whatever. But what are our guidelines? I'm assuming we're all in a medium suit.
Yes. All right. So I'll say let's give you 5 rep. Let's go 5. It worked last time. The one thing I will change, I'll tell you now, and then I'll make the adjustment in the sheet later. Very valid point, John, with the armor and the shielding. So the medium chassis will start off with 1 armor and 1 shielding.
Nice.
So the 5 we did, that was when we played last time, and I think that was a pretty basic suit, but it gave us a bit of, it
gives you a little bit extra,
a bit of swag to it. Okay,
yeah.
So
you could boost your filters. You could grab a good weapon. If you want to do a couple add-ons, flares and compasses and like that kind of stuff. So I will say, Dan, when we did suits, high shielding, super good over everything else. Maybe not to the exclusion of everything else, but a lot of shielding is going to pay dividends later on.
It'll let me throw really worse shit at you guys.
Fuck.
So 5 rep plus 1 and plus 1 shield, you said, right?
Yep. So the medium chassis will have one armor and 1 shielding.
Okay, and we're gonna
as standard.
Okay.
So since John brought it up, we'll talk about some mechanical stuff briefly. So as far as the suit comes into play, there are 2 main mechanics that come into play when it comes to a run, actually going out into the burnt and doing missions. That's going to be your speed and your shielding. Basically, speed is how fast you are, and it will determine how much time you spend in the burn. All right. So if you need to travel, 3,000 blocks to your delivery point, and you have 300 speed, that means that you're going to spend 10 hours in the burn, provided nothing else happens or you don't purposely detour yourself. The other factor is going to be your shielding, because your shielding protects you from the radiation. The way that radiation is calculated is we take the base level of that particular area, and we compare it to your shielding. If your shielding is higher than the amount of radiation, then you're safe. Everything is totally fine. If it's lower, that difference. So say the base level of radiation is 10 and your suit has 8 shielding. That means that you are taking 2 radiation damage every hour that you're in the burn. So in our scenario, if you have a 10-hour run and you're taking 2 radiation damage every hour, by the time you get out of there, you have taken 20 radiation damage. The way that works is for every, I believe, 5 damage, 6 actually.
6, all the stats.
Yep.
So if you get every single stat, you take a hit to you take a -1 until you get healed.
2. So for every 6 grays of radiation damage that you take, like John said, you tick off an ability, you tick off a stat. That stat has a -2 associated with it, at that point. It doesn't lower the stat in terms of harm, though. That's really important. So say you have a 4 strength, but you've taken strength radiation damage, you'll be rolling 2 dice from that point. So your pool is lowered, but you can still take 4 strength harm before, or 4 might harm before that stat is effectively at 0. So yeah, and once all 6 of your stats are at 0, or once all of them have gone ticked off, that is when you then take a long-term effect. So in order for a long-term effect to come into play, you basically have to take 36 radiation damage. So you can suck up a decent amount before it has like a long-lasting effect. And the long-lasting effects can be anything from a permanent -1 to a stat, a loss of, you can't heal naturally anymore, a chemical dependency, basically something like Narcan or something that you are now addicted to stave off the radiation, memory loss, which is you actually lose a rank and you lose a skill, you can lose a limb or an organ, and then there's also a mutation table that we roll on if that comes up as well. So but yeah, so those are pretty much the 2 important things. A third factor is also, and one thing that we didn't really play in with the last game that we played because I didn't want to make it a thing. But since we're also building with committee, you're kind of we'll say too that you are a team of runners, right? You are a unit, right? So that will kind of allow you to almost D&D style, like cover all of the bases. So, you can have a scout and you can have, a more techie guy and everything. So you can all figure that out together. But one thing to take into account is carrying capacity. So you are transporters effectively, and somebody or many of you will have to carry the goods from one place to another. So it's important to figure out how much you can carry, and again, because I like to keep everything vague, capacity is all single digits, right? So generally we'll say that like one capacity could be like 100 pounds or whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily matter, because if you get goods, we'll be like, okay, the cargo you have to carry today is, 4 capacity, right? So as long as somebody has extra capacity of 4, you're good to go. So
I will say that, was it sensors or was it something else? Oh no, comset. Well, comset's a 0 cost anyway.
Yeah, your basic comms are a 0.
Yeah, you probably want to grab that just so we could stay in communication with each other. And then there's a lot of, again, like it's 5 points is not a ton.
Right.
You spend 1 point here and 1 point there, and you're like, fuck, I really need like another point for this thing. Like, let me take that back off and let me go back and add this thing.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's, it is sort of a min-maxy kind of thing to like get the optimum value out of a low value suit.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that you have to take into a consideration, I know I only said 2. Apparently there's like multiple, there's like 4 things. Man,
there's a lot of stuff.
There's a few. But one thing too. So we talked about your speed and the distance that you cover in a certain amount of time. And it's something that I go over when, in planning the run. One thing that you do have to take into account too is your power generation. So when you have your reactor, that generates a certain amount of power. And there are ways to replenish that power. But when you're out in the burnt, unless you're kind of more of a high-end runner and you're able to carry a portable generator with you or a replacement reactor, generally speaking, the battery that you go out with, that's the power that you'll have to get yourself from one end to the other. So you'll notice that each part, or a lot of the parts, have a drain on them. That's how much power per hour they use. I will say too, your suits can be customized and altered from run to run. All right. So if you have a longer run and you're like, all right, well, my suit can generate 50 power and it's a 10-hour run, and in that 10 hours, I'm going to drain 54 power. Right. Well, you're going to be 4 power short, which means your suit's going to die like a half a block outside of the next area. So you need to figure out a way to cut power usage. So you could always, take out your thrusters, or, swap out a comm set that uses less power and that kind of stuff. So we'll say that in building your suits, there are those zero cost parts are always able to be on standby just in case you want to swap stuff out.
Plug and play.
So that's one of the the board. So apparently there's 4 big factors to take into place. Shielding, what was it? Shielding, speed, capacity, and power. All right. So does anybody want to build their suit right now, or do we want to do that off camera? John's almost done. Or does anybody at least have questions about suit building? Nope.
I mean, I have questions, so it's more like I just need to sit down and do it rather than that's my cat.
So everybody on this podcast has to have their cat come up. So John's got his, I've got mine, Dan's got his. So we're all good.
I don't have a cat, and my dog won't come into the basement.
Nice.
I don't know why. He goes up and down stairs, and it's not like the stair, like it's like a complete staircase. It's not like, sometimes there's the basement stairs that don't have the kick plate, so you can see through them. I know a lot of dogs don't like those. It's like, but they're complete stairs. There's walls on either side. Like, it's no different than any other staircase that he's been on. He just will not come down into the basement. Never has.
It's because he knows if he comes down, he'll see all these cats on the computer.
Right.
It's either that or ghosts. I mean, that's your standard experience.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That basement's haunted. That checks out.
You know what? It could be a very good possibility that it was on a Native American burial ground.
There you go. Checks out.
Yep.
So I think to the point of building suits. So I think the way I like to do it is so, and this is just my my preference is so when we did it last time, I'd like to get an idea of what the character that I was going to build was, and then feed that into the suit. Now I think we're a bit restricted now that there's not a lot of flair we can put into it, right? Because it's a standard suit, other than just the technical pieces to add on to it. So, but I think what I'll do is that I'll do my character first, and then when we come back around, I'll have the suit, because as John said, it's pretty. So the zeros are there, and then I guess also depending on which each of us are going to try to be for the character, then also feeds into the suit, right? Whether you want to have more storage capacity, that kind of thing, or if you're going to be quote unquote the tank, that kind of thing, or the med guy, that kind of thing. So I think there are Jesse said the suit kind of defines the character, but also some of the character things can also help define the suit for for those little bits.
Absolutely.
Do we want to talk about that then? I mean, do you have an idea going in of who you think, do you want to play the med guy? Do you want to play the tank guy? Do you want to play the Mr. McFixit guy? Like
you guys are amazing at transitional material. It's everything is fed right into the next. It's like we haven't even we don't even have to worry about it.
It's not our first rodeo. Come on.
John, we have to be careful, because people might think we actually planned this shit ahead of time, and we cannot let them think that.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is, so I'm open to, from all the other games we play, if someone has something that they're dead set on, I'm quite happy to flip around. But for some reason in my head, I want to be a demolitions guy and I want to blow stuff up. So unless someone else was really keen to do that, I'm going to be the demolitions guy.
Nice.
That's fine.
Every group needs their bomb goblin. So yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool.
Yep.
As long as because I think there was a couple games.
You need to be able to blow. You need to be able to blow holes through decimated buildings and landslides and everything like that. So yeah.
Okay. So so I'm gonna be the bomb guy. So whether that feeds into I have more shielding, or was it shielding or no, more armor or less armor, I guess would depend on my psyche. So we'll see how that plays out.
Do you try to withstand the explosion or run away from it?
Exactly. So I'll
it's part of the game that you light the fuse and then you see if you can run away fast enough.
Well, as you're a kid with a smoke bomb or M80, see how long you can hold it before you throw it, right? Yeah. So I'll be.
And every time he snips a little bit more off the fuse to get
exactly.
Well, consider this when you're building your suit. Well, no, because I guess you could use that for. So, Dan, for Core Micro, you can spend XP on not only increasing the bonus to a particular, and I don't. Well, we'll defer to Jesse because I don't know if it counts for the suits, but so if you're playing the military guy and you want, a badass, scoped, reboard, whatever the fuck, you can spend, XP to increase the bonus of the rifle. So instead of just rolling with a regular thing, your rifle can be a +1. You could have a +1 combat knife or whatever it is. You have to spend XP to do that. You can also, like Kevin wants to be the demolitions guy, spend XP from your character to have a pro kit. And a pro kit essentially is you have the things that are required for that job, right? So if you're a masseuse, you spend an XP on a pro kit and you have your table and your oils and your music and your whatever. If you're a mechanic, you've got your tools and your
of all the professions that
John
you
got a massage today. That's why he said that. Right?
I got one the other day.
Exactly.
Well, but it's the example in the book. I'm just going with the example in the book. So can we spend our character XP to increase a bonus of a suit item? Because if not, that's completely fine because it's never come up before. But as we're going through it, I'm just thinking about it. I would say no, right? Because it's not a personal
right. Yeah.
thing.
In this, so I would say
Just say no.
under normal circumstances, yes. If it was something that you owned and built, but in this particular case, the way that we've built the story, it doesn't necessarily make sense.
100%.
So,
but we can spend our character XP to buy pro kits that then would help us, right? Because explosives are explosives; they're not
yes, exactly
specific.
Yeah, so I would say no to spending XP to boost suit things, but feel free to on other equipment and supplies and things like that. That's perfectly fine.
Cool. Yep.
Yes.
So I think Demolitions does have a toolkit on here.
Yes, and if not, you could just. I mean, you could,
You can
assuming
just
it's okay with Jess, you just say that you
Yeah.
have that, right?
Yeah.
You just spend the XP. It's whatever.
Yeah.
I think Demolitions has a pro kit toolkit required.
Required, yeah, because it has the exactly. Cool.
Did you increase the backpack from 5 capacity to 10?
Potentially.
I thought it was 5 before. I guess I could look at it because I have both files up. Yep.
Are you talking about the rucksack?
Yeah, the rucksack went from 5 to 10.
Nope. If you notice the all of the formatting is off.
Oh, it's all shifted. Oh, okay, I see
It's
it.
all
I see
shifted up one.
it. Yep. Okay.
I didn't
Let me
notice
change that on my
before.
sheet then.
Oh, that's gonna be for
Have fun with that. You're welcome.
Well, no, that is so speed, presence, and drain are all lined up in size. So all those are all perfectly lined up. The mount and the special are one higher. So the way I did this is each column is its own text column. So to fix that is actually super easy. All I have to do is go into the document and just hit enter on the mount and the special, and it'll drop everything down one. Just the fact I missed it when I was initially going over everything. So
okay, I think I have a suit more or less ready.
nice. So what did you end up going with?
So if I keep this, because I still have one cost, one XP to spend, one rep to spend. So it's a medium suit. So 1 shielding, capacity 15, drain 2, armor 1. I went with the orb, power generation, the reactor. So it generates 40 power. It's a size 2. Hydraulic actuators, I think that's what that is. Adds 2 to speed, 2 size. Carbon filters costs 1. Shielding of 2 with the size of 2. The HEPAs are smaller, but they cost more. But they're the same shielding. So depending on capacity, again, as we get into the minutia of like, oh shit, if I could spend 1 more to like free up a capacity or whatever. I have Flex Lex for what the fuck was Flex Lex?
1 shielding.
Okay, so that's a shielding. So that brings my shielding up to, let's see, 4 so far. No drain or anything on that. MK1 computer costs 1, adds 1 to speed. Short range comms is a -1 to presence, offsets the presence from the suit. It's a size 1 and it's mounted on the top, so little antennas and shit. Monotube, there's the shock absorbers.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, monotube shock absorbers. It's 1 size, 1 speed. Let's see, water cooling. So it brings the drain back down by 1. So that the drain is Drain from all of the suit mechanisms will cause drain from the power generation, so that just offsets that by 1. The comm set also is drain 1, mounted on the head. I think we said that.
Yep.
Geiger, so I got a Geiger counter. It's cost 0. It's 1 drain. So is that a constant, or is that like for use, or does that work?
Nope, that's a constant. So
Okay.
there's if it's a drain, it's a constant.
It's a constant thing, which makes sense,
Yep.
right? You're running through the burnt, and like you want to know
Exactly. Yeah.
if you're
So
entering
where single use or situational use stuff will come in is under special. You'll see that a lot. It'll say push,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So that gives you a feature that lasts a short period of time, and those have their own power cost to it.
Yep.
So, and just so to point it out, since we're in that section, remember that the mount and the special are shifted 1 up. So the Geiger counter is not mounted on the torso or the arm. It has no mount. So that's fine.
Just kind of like on the suit, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the suit.
Yep. I grabbed a gyro. It costs 1. It adds 1 to speed. It's size 1 and drain 1. I grabbed the rucksack. It adds 5 to the capacity, but is also accounts for a size as it's mounted to the back. Combat knife, which was free. A snub pistol, which was free. Both of those cause 1 harm. And a shield, which is free, which is size 1. So I imagine it's just like a piece of metal, sort of welded buckler style to the the forearm. So the total capacity that I can carry is 20, but that is offset by mechanisms and units and things that are on the suit. That's 11 size. So my total carrying capacity is 9. My speed is at 5. My shielding is at 4. My drain is at 4 with a 40 power generation, so that doesn't seem terrible. Because I know I upped the power generation on the suit for the playtest, and it was like way over what
It
we
was
needed.
way, yeah.
So I went down a little bit, but that still leaves me a rep to spend, so I'm probably going to fiddle with this a little bit more.
There you go. Of course you are.
Yeah. Well, so there's items that you can purchase that are not part of the suit, but do cost things.
Yes.
So you can buy. I don't see any one well things.
You can buy blast paste.
I thought like blue caps and shit like that were cheaper. Although I don't actually see them on here now.
They are in equipment in tech. Page 16 of the PDF. A blue cap is 3 wealth.
Oh, I see it now.
2.
Oh, a lot more. Okay, yeah. Okay, I thought there was one that was cheaper.
KI powder is 1.
Okay. It helps
I actually ended up not. I think in the previous version I did have like 1. I think maybe the KI powder was 0. But
no, it was a size 0 cost 1.
Yeah.
And blue caps were 3 before.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I pulled it up.
There you go. So one thing. So you said your speed is what, 5?
Correct.
Okay.
And then we're adding grace to that, I think, right?
Yes. So with that, you're did I not? Where did I put the math in?
Oh no, we lost Kurt.
Oh, we lost Kevin. Or Kurt. Let's see.
He's had enough of my shit.
Right? Or is that in the sheet? Let me pull up the suit sheet.
Look, now you're gonna make me edit.
I am. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so the speed that you get is in minutes. So that's your suit without your grace can cover 5 blocks per minute. And so obviously you multiply that out to find your blocks per hour. So 5 times 60 is 300. Yeah. So your suit can cover 300 blocks per hour. And then whatever without you in. Yep. So, which means I can just throw longer runs at you guys. And that also is part. So one thing too is I didn't. I'll throw the character sheet and the suit sheet into the email thread as well.
I did it.
Oh, you did it? All right, there you go. Never mind. So that'll have that actually has slots for all the like the different, it marks out so you can have your speed, your basic speed in minutes, and then the total for hours and all that kind of stuff. So
Kurt texted me he was getting a massive headache, so he bounced. He said sorry, and he'll work on his character.
That's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we have a demo guy. Dan, do you have any sort of idea of how you may want to approach your actual character?
My character, I'm kind of going back and forth on the whole since the suits are recycled, right? They come from somebody else. So I'm thinking my character's main thing is that he's using his brother's suit. The suit came back, the brother didn't, and this is his first run. Like, he always looked up to the brother, and he ended up getting his brother's old suit. And that's about as far as I've gotten with the character, but I think there's something there.
And I think
that sounds like good life shaper material right there.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah,
that works out really.
Is he more of a tech guy? Is he more of like?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because that doesn't tell me anything about what he's actually like. What he's going to do in the game, right?
So yeah, one thing I find interesting though, this could go two different ways in terms of building the suit and building the character in general. So you got the suit from your brother, which means that it was outfitted to suit his needs, right? So I think you could play it two different ways. Either you've almost kind of purposely configured your style to emulate your brother. Was it like an older brother, younger brother?
Older brother.
Older brother? All right. So that makes sense too, right? A younger brother looks up to his older brother. You're emulating his style, right? You're trying to be him, right? So you kind of train yourself and adjust yourself to fit the style of his suit. Or your brother's suit was made to fit his style, but it doesn't necessarily fit yours. So you could actually build a suit that goes counter to the way you want to run. And that could be part of kind of your character development, is you either
me adapting to grow to fit the suit, or making the suit fit me.
Exactly. And it could also be that internal struggle of like, this was your brother's suit. Do you actually want to change it? Like,
right. Especially if I'm thinking that, like, the brother, maybe he was like a bit of a hero, right? Like, he's like, I've got some big shoes to fill. Whether people think I can do it or not is, up to them. Right. Certainly my character probably is not 100% sure he can do it. So he's got a lot in his head going on.
I really like
that.
But
especially if like you combine both of those things, right? So he's like, let's say maybe the brother was like, big and strong, and he's like, small and nimble. So he's got a mech built for strength, and he's definitely not like a big strong guy himself, but also like, there's this, quote unquote legendary, mech, like, or at least, mech that belonged to this dude that everybody knew and everybody respected, and maybe saved some people's lives in other runs or whatever. And now they're giving it to this skinny kid. Sure, it's his brother, but and so there's a lot there. There's some fun stuff there to play with.
I really like that. That's an awesome idea.
I've been trying to convince Jesse to like incorporate a bunch of elements from like red markets and shit. So like vignettes of having people at home that you have to take care of, and like, that sort of things, like negotiations for like, we work for the company and, they just tell us to go do whatever. But like in a different setting, or like maybe even off on the side, like, a guy who knows a guy that needs a thing, and then you have to negotiate for that, not full blown like red markets negotiation, but like, you have to negotiate, and do you deliver? Can you deliver? What are the stakes? Like that kind of stuff to like incorporate the social skills and make that null zone more, fleshed out and real for the characters to be like, oh yeah, fuck, Billy wants this thing, and I told him I was going to get it, and fuck, I can't find it. Like, do I stay out here and waste more power, or do I just own up and say I can't get it? And then, like, what does that do for my rep within the community, sort of thing, right? It can lead to a lot of different interesting stuff.
I mean, that still comes into play though. So, in basically, there's 3 phases to a game, right? To a mission, so to speak. So you get handed your assignment, and in general, whatever the situation is, but in runners in general, you get the job, right? So go from point A to point B, and hopefully back again, or whatever. But the important thing is, you deliver this or get this from here to there. So you get that mission. You then prep for it, by what we talked about. So make sure that you actually have the speed and the power to get from point A to point B. Make sure that you can withstand any potential radiation, and also make sure that you can carry whatever you need. So it's the basic planning. One of the other things, though, is for the most part, the burnt is unknown territory, right? It's, there might be routes that certain runners have taken, but it's almost an ever-changing landscape, especially where you guys are in an icy tundra. There's landslides and, holes that open up and all this kind of stuff, buildings constantly falling over, explosions happening for some weird reason, Kevin. So, everything's constantly changing. So it's really important to keep up on current information and what's going on within the burnt. So one of the big aspects is gathering intel before you go. So that is going to known sources, using information that you already have or that somebody else might have to get you a leg up when you go in for the run. So that is when, social aspects come in. You might carouse. You might use various contacts that you have. And a lot of times those people might want something in return for giving you valuable information. They might want money, but they also might want to be like, okay, well, I know a really good path that, I've heard that there's this really good clear path recently that'll get you, around this one place. Well, near there, I know there also used to be, this little car factory, and they have some parts that I need to do this. So you mind, if you go through, when you pass through there, how about you pick me up some parts, and when you come back, and we'll call it square. So there's always those little aspects. So there's that negotiation aspect that can also come into play. So
I mean, you can still have that even in the town. Like, just because we're all
absolutely,
working for the same company doesn't mean there aren't like factions within the company. And it's a metropolis. There's gonna be like a black market. There's always gonna be like, hey, take you aside. Like, hey, this is standard company run, but on the way there, like I need you to do this for me. That sort of thing.
If you happen to see something while you're out
exactly.
I mean, honestly, too, it could be even more important because the metropolis is controlled by the union. It's controlled by the company. So there's two things though that they can't control. They can't control information, right? And they can't control what comes. Well, all right, to a certain extent.
They can try,
right? Yes. So they can't control information, and they can't control what gets brought in and not registered. So those two commodities could become very important within this style of community.
Well, and even if people aren't looking for stuff in particular, right, then there's always the balance of like, okay, they want us to go get this, but I know I'm going to look for stuff that I can sell myself. Right. So how much stuff can I grab for me to make money on the side versus how much capacity do I need to like actually do the job that they're paying me for?
Yep.
I think one of the things when we played last time, my character had an overarching need to, so it's the after times, right? And everything was destroyed and blown up. So his drive was to save knowledge. So anytime there was a book or magazine or papers, he had the need to, no matter what run we were doing, he wanted to make sure we got that. So when we did it, I think we found like a storage locker with a bunch of magazines or something in it, right?
Right,
so his extra pack was sticking all this stuff in his, because it was knowledge. He didn't know what it was, but it was stuff written down and it's paper. Everybody's cloud storage had gone away. Everybody's USB is blown up. So now it was just all back to paper. So his drive was, okay, I got to make sure no matter what it is, whatever scrap of paper it is, I'm taking back with me. So.
Exactly.
Dropbox, my PDFs. No.
So many games I haven't played.
Right.
So many.
Kurt didn't give any indication of what he wanted to play. And we can handle all that by email. We know what Kevin wants to do. I'm happy to pick up the slack for, whatever the hole is then. Like if nobody wants to play the medic, then I'm more than happy to take, first aid and, those sorts of things. Cause it doesn't have to be super specific, right? Like a level or two in first aid is great, but I can also have other skills, right? Like it's not like you're spending all of your points in one thing, right? Like more than one person having, mechanics or electronics or whatever is not going to be a bad thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because we can help you, there's helping roles and that kind of stuff. But just to have sort of I don't even want to call it defining thing, right? But just make sure we have that somebody has mechanics, right? That somebody has electronics. Right. Because once you're out in the burn, right? There's nobody but the team.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. So one thing, now that since we're talking about like skills and things like that, I will say I am leaning towards 100-point characters. You're good with that?
Fine. Yeah.
All right.
If we're fresh characters, makes sense, right?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I know you were very hesitant with the Cthulhu game. You were like, "How the fuck am I going to make a character with 100 points?"
Well, because I was trying to multi-class and it was stupid.
Yeah, right. I found it like I didn't not dealing with a class, like not dealing with a profession. I found it super easy. Like once I was like, yeah.
I don't dislike
I think I rolled my I
professions.
think it took me less than 5 minutes to do a character.
When I decided not to use a profession, I stayed at a character in like 5 minutes.
Right.
And I think they're good, right? So like so we're far afield from runners right now, but So for core, right, you have your regular 6 stats, and your stats represent dice pools. So if you have a 3 in brains, you're going to roll 3d6. You take the highest, and then you add whatever skill is relevant, if it's indeed relevant at all, right? It might just be like a brains roll to remember something or whatever. The professions that Cthulhu presents are like your classic tropey sort of thing. So your doctor, professor, a private investigator, soldier, that kind of stuff. And for someone coming new to the system, it's cool because it gives you like a boost to things. Right? So if you already know you want to play a soldier, you want to play like a, rough and tumble kind of guy or gal, then it provides you with a skill set that's already sort of geared towards that. So the profession is going to take 100-point character, and depending on what you boost, may boost that by like 20 XP or like 70 XP, depending on how you boost your stats and your skills. Because what it'll do is it'll boost one of your stats by 1, and it'll boost 2 skills by 1. But if you boost a +1 skill and make it a +2, which now with the new rules is actually still only it's only 10, because it used to be like 30, right? And if you already have a stat at like +3 and bumps you to +4, like that's a lot of XP, like potential XP that you're spending. So it affects your total character value because it makes you better. So if you already have that idea of like, I'm going to play a soldier, it makes it easier to make that. So for the current game that we're running, I'm playing like an ex-soldier who found out about the mythos. So it's like soldier occultist. Like, well, he's a soldier first, but then trying to like work in the occult skills using the professions just fucked it all up. I was like, I'm not going to do that, and I'll just build a character, and it was easier. So I don't know where it's all on professions now. Like, I'm going to leave them in Cthulhu because I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does too. But you also have to, back to the point that you were making about telling Jesse about building more of that social stuff in, instead of maybe making it a role, maybe do it as, I forget the correct term, but, put it as a sidebar in, BT dubs, you may want to do this to build your character. When we've played in other stuff before, we've built that stuff in naturally, right? Because we come up with ideas for a character. And I think one of the things before was that, hey, go find this for me and I'll help you out with this other crap you've got going on. It was just, it came natural to us. I think for a new player to the system, or a new player just in general, having those guidelines then helps you focus a bit. But for you, when we were chatting back and forth about building your character, it made much more sense because you knew what to do. Just give me a bunch of points and I'll build something instead of going for PI or whatever. So leaving that in there is a good option, right? Because you don't want someone coming in saying, I have no idea what I'm going to do. How do I build a character? Or I'll just take one of these, kind of shells and build out from that. Or people would have like, well, I know how to do crunchy stuff. Just give me a bunch of numbers and I'll pick a bunch of stuff. So it's good to keep kind of both of those in there.
Yeah.
And I think I may have to rewrite that for Cthulhu. I know you probably already laid that section out, but say that, because I did it for Noir, to say that professions are, I don't know if it specifically says optional, but I think, instead of
guidelines, maybe something like that.
Well, I think it says you may choose a profession as opposed to now choose a profession or whatever the language is in Cthulhu. And it's a subtle thing, and maybe people would or wouldn't pick up on that, but they're definitely not required, but they're there to kind of put up the bumper. So like people, just
put that passive language in of, you can choose that, like you said, may.
Yeah.
Because somebody may come in and just say, I've been busy all week. I haven't been able to build a character. I'll just pick that. Here's all the points I need to get in. And I think it's also good where you put in those sections of those stereotypical, this is a 100-point character, this is 150, either do it yourself or just pick these. I think that helps either new or if everybody just shows up at one time and says, okay, let's pick something and play. There's that option of just grabbing it and filling it out that way.
Now that being said, go ahead. Yeah,
I was just going to say characters are super easy to build in core. Like literally, you could rip out a character in like 5 minutes if you have an idea of what you want to play. The point spins are super easy. You grab a couple of skills. Like it's really, really simple.
You know what I'll probably do tonight too is since I'm doing the formatting on the document for all the equipment for the suit building stuff, I'll go in and throw in the character creation section. At the very least, do like basic, almost like a copy paste from Core Complete, just to get the new math in there, because I don't think that's anywhere publicly. So
it's not. So I think So I think the initial build is the same, but if you want to take a skill from +2 to +3, it's only an extra 10. So if you level up afterwards, instead of being 30, it's 10. But I think the initial math is all still the same.
I don't think that stat math is the same either. I think he tightened that up a little bit too.
No,
is it really?
Yeah. So I don't know, but for two is still 5 XP, 3 is still 15. After 3, I don't know, because I usually don't spend that much XP on stats.
Yeah. So what I think I'll do that anyway, just so everything's, reference wise in one document, and we don't have to bother having 2 different PDFs or whatever open. I'll do that, and I'll also similar to, I like what and I use it a lot when I create D&D characters. How they give that just starting value 15, 14, 13, or was it 15, 14, 13, 12, 10? They give you that of like, hey, if you just want to just plop these numbers into whatever stat you want, and that's how I'll probably do the same thing with this as well. I'll pick one of I know Tod gives like 3 of them. I'll probably just pick one and be like, hey, if you want to just super quick generate a character, take these 6 numbers, plop them in here, you put a +1 and 2 skills, and you're good to go. I'll have all that to you guys either tonight or tomorrow morning or tomorrow. So I found out that I'm going to have the next 4 or 5 days off of work. So
nice. You need the break anyway.
Well, yes and no. So I had my D&D game last night. And we actually took, we get almost 0 game done. We play for 6.5 hours, but that includes dinner and a shit ton of just side talk. But in one of them, we were talking about how in the last couple of days in this area, in Massachusetts in general, but in this area, like pollen count has been through the roof. And so we're all, even me, I don't normally have, seasonal allergies, but even I'm like a little sniffly and everything like that. And I'm kind of feeling it. And then this morning, one of the guys was like, hey, so I thought I just had allergies. But I took a COVID test this morning and it's positive.
Good times.
Yep. So I'm out of work for the next 5 days until I can get a negative test.
God.
So, yep.
Did you test already? Or you?
I haven't. I have no symptoms, and I'm also vaxxed and boosted. Yeah. So the chances, and I've also had it. so effectively I'm double boosted.
Yeah.
I got it like I think like a month after I got my booster shot. So but yeah. So I don't think I'm gonna have it. I don't think I'm gonna get it, but as a precaution, especially since I work retail, like I'm not in the store. So
yeah. So you're gonna finish Cthulhu then this week.
That's my plan. I've already got a bunch of that. I have my style down. I'm using some new brushes and everything, and I think I got it down and I figured out how to work them. So I already have a few of the pieces done.
Just keep the deep one. Well, I don't know if you want to tweak it again. I like the one that
I'm definitely gonna tweak it, but I like the way that one came out. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so with all that said, I'll put the character stuff in there. Runners, like I said before, more of the impetus is on the suit. So that's, I'm not going to be including professions or anything like that. So we're just going to do a straight up 100-point character. So yeah, we'll do a 100-point character, 5-point suit. And yeah, that's about it.
If you want to throw that in an email just for Kurt as well to
Yeah, absolutely,
keep him
yeah.
up to yeah. I don't have anything else. Dan, you have any questions?
Just
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, there's a lot, but yeah, nothing that immediately comes to mind. I think I've got a good spot to start with like making my character and everything else.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds like
Yeah, and I've been taking notes. What was that? Sorry.
I know, just we'll figure out the rest of the week.
Yeah, and I've been taking notes on the null zone and everything like that. So I'll form that into something more solid and as like an actual description of the city, and I'll throw that into the email as well. So I don't know. I might actually start. What I might
You'll have
do
a
is
whole
start
map
up
by the end of the week.
Yeah, I might start up a Word doc. I mean, a Google Doc that we can add to as information comes in. More so, it'll be important. What we can add is the contacts that you come up with as you start gathering intel and as we start doing runs and everything like that. I'm thinking that's a document that we can then start adding to that so that everybody has shared access to all the world information. So,
and then it won't be like dissimilar from what you guys are doing over there, right? So it's very yes and. So if you're like, hey, I know a guy who owns a whatever and his name is this and his wife's name is it's in, right? Like as long as stuff's not completely ridiculous, like everything is on the table. So like, don't be like, oh, I don't know if I should say this or add that or whatever. It's all
in general too. I am a very okay GM.
Yeah.
Like, so if even with world building stuff, I'm cool as long as it makes sense and it makes sense in the world. It's totally cool. Create whoever you want, whatever you want. Even in the game that the D&D game that we used to play, it was a world that I created like 15 years ago and have run multiple campaigns in. That being said, every single new campaign that was run, if somebody was like, hey, does this town exist? Fuck yes, it does. Like, because there's always going to be blank spots. And like, I only create what's needed up until that very point. So if there's another null zone that about that you want created, or something in the burnt that you think might be interesting, or a person in your city, it's all on the table. So
I think the good thing about this is, and we've talked about this separately when we've played before, is for this the roles also make you do the yes and no and yes but no but.
Right, yeah.
So it's built into the roles. It's just not a straight roll of, okay, I did this and then that happens. Having that extra no or yes onto the roles is fun then too, because then you're not limiting yourself to just taking what the role says. If Jesse can build on it because something popped into his head, or if you do it, okay, I completely whiffed on this, but I set myself up for the next turn, or I dodged from something else. And it's really fun that those are built into the roles, that it's just not a straight number after you roll the dice. So that does make the gameplay a lot more fun. It does add more stuff to it and move stuff forward, because you get that other stuff added onto those rolls. So that's always a cool thing too.
And one place too to feel comfortable with that. So in a run, I wanted some structure to the gameplay of it. I didn't want it to just be a number crunch ahead of time and be like, okay, we have enough capacity, we have enough speed, we have enough shielding, we have enough, power. I guess we make it. All right, so let's hit fast forward, and now we're at the next null zone, right? So I didn't want it to be that, but at the same time, I also didn't want it to just be like a free for all, because you know how, so in your classic adventuring game, there's two ways that you can handle. Like most of the time, a whole adventure is like, well, go to this place, fight these things, get this treasure, and then come back home, right? Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily a thing in runners, because the whole goal is just to get to another point. And so there's two ways that travel is taken. It's either, well, you're on safe roads, and so we just hit fast forward and just assume you're there, or, well, I'll roll on a random encounter table a few times, but it doesn't really matter too much, because ultimately it's where you're going that counts. So in runners, I didn't want it to just be, well, let's fill the space between these two null zones, so let's just have a bunch of random encounter tables, because that, for me, doesn't seem super fun.
Mm-hmm. And you love tables.
I do love tables.
Who doesn't love a good table?
Right? But I mean, I didn't want to just be like, okay, well, roll on this D100 or roll like 10D6 and see, what pops up. So I wanted to structure it a little bit more. So in the run, I have what are called nexus points. It's a point of potential change, right? And that's actually where the intel and everything comes in. So we'll go over all of it. It's also in the book, but basically it's a point where, think of it like, if we think of it like a movie, we have like that kind of the montage scenes, and then all of a sudden everything kind of slows down when something's about to happen. Mm-hmm. Right. That's when like the camera kind of comes in and everything slows, and it shows, the slowdown of like the guy's like, oh wait, something's over there. So, or like, shit, like we thought our path was going to be clear, but a building has fallen down and blocked it. And so now we have to, something has to happen. So that's going to require a roll. Things are going to happen, and feel free to add any flavor, obviously depending on what the role is, but feel free to add any flavor and create anything else that is in line with the story and kind of helping things along. Don't feel like you have to stick to like what's known and what you think might be like okay within what we've talked about before. If you want to add anything to those moments, that is all part of the sphere of potential. So narratively, be as creative as you want to be, changing whatever you want depending on what the roles are and everything. Feel free to have at it with those ands and yeses and all that kind of stuff.
Sounds good.
And they don't have to be tied to whatever the role is necessarily. In combat, a lot of times it is, but like, you could be, rolling for an intel thing and get a yes and like, okay, yes, you get the bit of intel, and, the sun glints off your sunglasses, and, the woman walking by winks. It doesn't have to be necessarily related to whatever the actions are. I mean, you guys are super good at that kind of stuff already anyway, but just as a reinforcement. And if you need help building, like mechanically building a character or suit or whatever, just give me a shout and I can
we'll do.
Jump on with you or whatever. I mean, it should be pretty straightforward, but we've built a ton of characters at this point, so it's maybe taking it for granted.
Now I'll take a stab at it over the week, and I'll poke you if I have any questions.
Okay,
Sounds
cool,
good.
cool. All right.
Actually, yeah, I have a couple of things that we'll talk about, but it's not necessarily relevant to like the in-game stuff. So we'll talk about that afterwards.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna get the hell out of here then. I think I actually will.
We're
post
gonna
this
run on out.
We're gonna run. That's awesome. I love it.
No, it's not.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for checking it out. Ratings, reviews on iTunes or whatever your podcatcher of choice is, super helpful. I'm going to throw a link in the show notes for all of our core products that are available. So please check those out as well. A good number of them are pay what you want or free. If you love the core stuff, don't support us. Go throw some money at Tod because Tod created core. Todd's doing good things. Todd's a good dude. We're gonna podcast anyway. It doesn't really matter. So if you like core, please
cast,
support
baby.
them. Yeah, we're gonna spike cast. We have a core Discord. I guess I should throw all the core links in the show notes. Please check all that stuff over. Check that stuff out over there. It's a relatively small community, but there's a lot of interesting, cool things happening over there as we talk about new core products, new settings, and that sort of stuff. So again, thanks for checking it out. Thank you to Dan for joining us on this little adventure here.
Pleasure to be here.
Scare him away. And we'll catch you all next time.
Peace.